Before You Were Mine is a poem by Carol Ann Duffy that appears on the Love and Relationships cluster of the AQA anthology. It's a poem in which the speaker directly addresses her mother, and in doing so explores the relationship between them, and more specifically the effect that the speaker has had on the mother and the way in which the speaker has kind of taken ownership of the mother's life. It's quite an unusual poem in that a lot of it appears to be in flashback, but actually when you get your head around it, it's a fairly straightforward poem to write about. It compares very nicely to some of the other parent-child poems on the syllabus, such as Follower and Walking Away, but also it compares to some of the less obvious poems on the syllabus as well, and that's something I'll talk about. So for this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the poem line by line. I'm going to break it all down for you, pull out the language features, pull out the structure, etc, etc. And also I'm going to do this table for you to take a look at the mother and the speaker and their relationship, and I think that's going to help you kind of understand the poem, revise the poem, and write about the poem. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get a copy of the poem in front of you, make sure you've read it, and then also get a spare pen and a spare piece of paper so that you can do the table as we go through the video. Let's get on with it. As with all the poems, we're going to look first at the title, Before You Were Mine. There's a lot going on in the title. It's always a good idea not to skip over the title, as a lot of students do with poems and with the prose and all of these English exams. A lot of the time there's this temptation to skip the titles if it doesn't matter. Don't do it. Look at the title. It's part of the text. The word before refers to this idea of the speaker almost being able to travel back in time and adopt a kind of fly on the wall perspective and watch her mother before she was born and see how the mother behaves and how she's changed. The word you refers directly to the mother, which suggests that this is a very personal poem, and also suggests a certain closeness between the mother and the speaker, which I think we will find as the poem goes on. Were is in the past tense. It refers to the mother in the past, how she used to be, as opposed to how she is now, how she became when the speaker was born. And mine is possessive. It refers to this idea of the speaker owning the mother, as if the mother was an object. And that's really the crux of the poem that we've got going on here. This idea of your life being your life and being yours, and you having this kind of autonomy and this independence until you have a child. When you have a child, suddenly your life isn't your life anymore, it's your child's life, and everything becomes about them. You wake up, you deal with them, you go to work to earn money for them, you put a roof over their heads, you put the food on the table, you put clothes on their back, and your life is no longer yours. You're owned by somebody else. And really, that's what this poem's about how the mother was independent, she was young, she was pretty, she was youthful, and then the child came along and everything changed. And it's from the perspective of the child looking back at the mother and seeing how everything's changed. So there's a lot going on in this title. It's also worth just looking at the ownership in the title. This is a poem that even could compare to a certain extent to The Farmer's Bride, in which the idea in The Farmer's Bride being that the speaker owns the female in the poem. In this poem, the speaker owns the mother. So even a poem like The Farmer's Bride, which isn't an obvious poem to compare it with, and I wouldn't say it's the easiest one, but you know, there are some things that key in. Just taking a look at the first stanza. The first stanza is almost a flashback, and I would encourage you to think about it from this point of view. Think about the idea of the daughter having found a box of photographs of the mother, and she's looking at these photographs, these old faded photographs, and in doing so she's able to imagine what the mother was like when she was younger, and she's almost able to flash back in time and a kind of adopt that fly on the wall perspective I was talking about, where she's able to look back at the mother and watch the mother and see how happy the mother was. And Carol Ann Duffy has actually written quite a lot about this poem and where the inspiration came from, and it's worth checking out. You can check it out online. I don't know, search for Carol Ann Duffy before you and mine, it'll likely come up. And one of the things she said was that, you know, she based the poem on looking at some old photographs of her mother, and that was where she got inspiration for the poem. So the poem flashes back 10 years, and what's interesting is that we have this weird kind of tense thing where the poem is in the past, it's a flashback, and yet it's written in the present tense. I am 10 years away from the corner you laugh on, as if the speaker isn't just looking at a photograph, she's actually kind of disappeared back in time, and she's watching almost like a ghost of somebody that's not been born yet. She's watching the mother on the corner with her friends 10 years before she was even born. So quite a weird, abstract start to a poem. Things to notice, I think, in this first line is the symbolism of the corner. You know, if we think about corners in life, what does a corner represent? It represents a change in direction. It's a happy event. The mother is laughing, she's carefree, you know, she's having fun. And she's with her pals, Maggie McGeaney and Jean Duff. So that the fact that the child knows the friends' names perhaps suggests that the mother has discussed this stuff with her. They've got quite a close relationship, a good relationship. But the fact that she's with her friends, she's laughing, she's having fun, you know, paints this picture of a really happy time in the mother's life. We've got some more imagery here, the three of them bending at the waist, holding each other. And what I wanted to take a look at here is not just the imagery, because the imagery is important, but also we've got some enjambment. They bend at the waist, holding each other, and we've got that line break at holding each other being on the next line. And what that suggests to me is perhaps the poet playing with language, playing with structure, suggesting that although they're holding each other and they're close, the fact that there's a line break there suggests that soon they will be broken apart. What will they be broken apart by? Well, they'll be broken apart by the constraints that life puts on people, the constraints that life puts on friends. When you're young, you have loads of friends around you. You spend all your time with them. You know, you're always out with your mates. But when you get older, things start to get in the way. You have a job. You're tired at night. You know, you don't want to go out with your friends all the time. You have children. You have relationships. You have responsibilities. So even the closest friends kind of drift apart. And I think that enjambment in the third line going into the fourth line to me represents that. You've got this idea of them holding each other, but although they're holding each other and they're obviously close, that image suggests they're very close. The enjambment suggests that they're about to be broken up, or they will be broken up. They're not as close as perhaps they seem. And they're laughing, they're shrieking at the pavement, you know, they're having fun. And then we get this very strong image of the mother, and it's a motif. It's the beginning of a motif that runs through this poem. Your polka dot dress blows round your legs, Marilyn. Not like Marilyn, but Marilyn. The speaker here is actually directly calling the mother Marilyn. It's a very, very, very famous image, the image of Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was a film star in the 1950s, perhaps the 1960s. Young, beautiful, you know. And the speaker is kind of comparing the mother to Marilyn here, which is suggesting that she thinks the mother is very beautiful. She thinks the mother is, you know, somebody that's really, she really admires. She thinks she's beautiful, she's attractive, she's young, she's got life really at her feet, she's got loads and loads of opportunities. And again, you know, she doesn't just say, you're like Marilyn, your polka dot dress blows around your legs like Marilyn. That would be a simile. She actually directly addresses her as Marilyn. You know, she says, Marilyn. I think what struck me when I read this for the first time is that Marilyn Monroe, whilst iconic, beautiful, sexy, attractive, etc., etc., is also tragic. You know, she died young. She had quite a tragic life. She was unhappy. She was alone. And I'm not suggesting that the speaker's mother is really unhappy, or she's going to die soon, or she's alone, or anything like that. But I think it's introducing that element that there's a certain tragedy to this. This is somebody, the mother is somebody who's not going to necessarily achieve everything that she could achieve. And the reason she's not necessarily going to achieve her full potential in life is because this child is going to come along, and the child is almost going to take over her life. And that's a theme, I think, that it runs through this poem. The idea of your dreams having to be kind of put on hold because children come along, you know. And that idea of Marilyn, I think, refers to that. Again, in the second stanza, we have the speaker reminding us that she's not born yet. I'm not here yet. We've got that weird idea of the speaker being in a place, looking at something that is happening before she was born. The thought of me does not occur. So that idea that the mother hasn't thought about having children yet, she's having too much fun, she's enjoying her life. And again, that enjambment, the thought of me does not occur with the ballroom with the 1,000 eyes. I think the enjambment there just isolates that line slightly. The thought of me doesn't occur, just to emphasise that the mother really hasn't thought about children yet. She's not interested in that. She's having fun. And then we flow into the second line. Where is she? She's in the ballroom with 1,000 eyes. The 1,000 eyes suggests that lots and lots of people are looking at her. You know, she's attractive, which again links back to the idea of Marilyn. She's popular. She's she's somebody that everybody's watching. The fizzy movie tomorrows that the right walk home could bring. So it's that idea there that, you know, life is full of opportunity at this point. The mother's young, she's attractive, she doesn't have children, she's surrounded by friends, she's got lots of admirers. You know, anything could happen. Life is full of opportunities, just like it was for Marilyn Monroe. You know, life is full of opportunities. And we've got that reference to movie tomorrows, which again links back to that motif, that idea of Marilyn Monroe, the movies. The idea that anything is possible. In the movies, anything can happen. You know, we see people frequently walking off into the sunset at the end. Life can end with that movie reality. But of course it's not going to end with that movie reality, because real life is going to kick in. The mother's not going to be young forever. She's not going to be free forever. She's going to get older. She's going to have children. She's going to have constraints placed on her life. But right now, anything is possible. The right walk home could bring that, you know, that idea that you could meet that man and he could walk you home after the dance, and, you know, life could kind of go on from there, and everything could work out perfect, and you could walk off into the sunset. And of course we know that's not going to happen. I knew you would dance like that. That line to me almost suggests that idea that the speaker really knows her mother. You know, I knew you would dance like that. I know you. I can imagine what you were like. Before you were mine, your ma stands at the close with a hiding for the late one. You reckon it's worth it? We've got that repetition there of the title. That repetition that reminds us of the ownership that the speaker has over the mother. Before you were mine, you're mine now. But before you were mine, you were doing all this stuff. You were living this life. It was exciting and it was fun. So I'm going to break there, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to update this table as I go through the poem. I'd like you to follow it with me, really. Before you were mine, let's take a look at the relationship between the mother and the speaker. First of all, we've got the speaker owns the mother in the title. So we're looking at the speaker first of all. So we've got this idea of the speaker owning the mother in the title, before you were mine, and that suggests a lot about their relationship. And that's kind of emphasised, that ownership is emphasised by the repetition of the title in the second stanza. Now, when we do these tables and you're going through these videos, it's worth afterwards just backing these up with quotes, because these give you the quotes and the ideas that you can start to write these essays with, okay? So I'm going to go through it like that, and I'm going to add to it as we go through it. And I would recommend, if you've got that pen and paper, that you make this table with me. You can always pause the video. Okay, just to get back to that second stanza, at the end of that stanza, you've got this suggestion that the speaker's mother was maybe a bit of a tearaway. She stayed out late, she had boyfriends, the mother wasn't very happy with it, and occasionally, she got a bit of a hiding. What's interesting is that in the first two stanzas, we've almost got these frozen pictures of the mother, standing on the corner laughing, dancing in the ballroom, walking home with the right man, almost like the speaker is looking at those photos and imagining what it was like through looking at the photos. They're frozen images, which suggests that perhaps time was passing quite slow. Moving into the third stanza, I think there's that real speeding up of time, that idea of time moving quickly. We've suddenly got a decade that flashes by in a line. The decade ahead of my loud possessive yell was the best one, eh? And then suddenly the speaker's here. I remember my hands in those high-heeled red shoes. So that idea that suddenly time flew, it went so quickly. Where did time go? The mother's youth was just suddenly gone. It was there. She was having fun. She had all the potential. All her dreams could come true. Anything could happen. And then suddenly the youth was gone. There was a child here, and suddenly her freedom was gone. Suddenly she's having to look after this child. She's life has put its constraints on. The decade ahead of my loud possessive yell was the best one, eh? So the poet's kind of saying there, the speaker's kind of saying there, that was the best decade, wasn't it? That was the decade, looking back, if we're honest with each other, that was the decade where you really had your freedom. You could do what you want. Life had so much potential. And then suddenly, like I said, the speaker's in the poem. I remember my hands in those high-heeled red shoes, relics. There's a bit of symbolism in there. High heels tend to represent femininity, sexuality, power, if you like, and the idea of the mother having worn those high heels when she went out, she went to the dance, she wore the high heels, but now those high heels, they're just in a cupboard or they're in the corner of the bedroom, and actually the child's playing with them. The mother no longer wears them. They're described as relics. A relic is something very old. It's something from the past. Something that is like a totem or an object from the past. The high heels are no longer part of the mother's life, and the fact that the child now plays with them, so it tells you kind of how much control the child has over the mother's life. She's putting her hands in the high heels, playing around. The mother doesn't wear the high heels anymore. So there's a bit of symbolism there, and of course there's an image as well. I remember my hands in those high-heeled red shoes, relics. And then there's that kind of flashback again into the past, and now your ghost clatters towards me over George Square. So this is the mother again, kind of walking back maybe from a night out, and the speaker almost seeing her as a fly on the wall. We've got the onomatopoeia, clatters, which suggests that loud kind of clattering sound that you hear maybe on a street late at night when it's empty and quiet, and there's a woman walking back from the pub, perhaps in high heels, that clattering sound that the high heels make. Perhaps suggesting a slightly drunken walk as well, maybe, because we know that the mother was maybe a bit of a tearaway. So we've got that image. And the mother here is described as a ghost, your ghost, as if that mother that was there before, that mother from the past, that mother that the speaker is seeing while she's looking at this photograph, that mother's gone now. That mother's dead. That mother is just a ghost. Let's come back down to our table. We've got the idea of the speaker arrives in the third stanza. Speaker begins to take over the mother's life, as represented by the image of the speaker playing with the high heels, which are described as relics. So this is giving you an idea of the speaker's relationship to the mother and the effect that the speaker's arrival has had on the mother. the mother, if we're going to just go down and take a look at the mother, and I want to look at perhaps in this table how she changes. Very happy and carefree. Oops, sorry. Free in first stanza, but is on the corner. And if you're writing about this in an essay, you'd write about the symbolism of that corner. Okay? Described as Marilyn. And you know, you'd write about the connotations of that. Have I spelt Marilyn right? I don't believe I have. Sorry about that. The connotations of Marilyn, youthful, beautiful, full of potential, but also didn't realise that potential, and quite tragic. So, you know, I would talk about, if you're talking about the mother, that idea of her being Marilyn, and, you know, that idea that she didn't fully realise that potential. I would also talk about the way that she is described as a ghost. If you're talking about the way that the mother is presented, I'd talk about that as well. So to come back to the poem, you've got a few ideas there about the mother and the speaker. I know I'm rushing through this fast, but you know what? It's a YouTube video, so pause it. If you want to make this table, pause it as we go through. You can listen to me talking, then you can pause it and you can copy what I'm writing in the table, or you can put it into your own words. But importantly, look for some quotes, back it up with quotes, okay? Then I'm going to give you a little question at the end of this video to have a go at answering perhaps, and that might give you an idea of how to begin writing about this poem as well, with the table and with the annotated poem. So the mother's described as a ghost. We've got some onomatopoeia, and then we've got this kind of weird sort of movement in time, but I think we're still in the past. Till I see you clear as scent under the tree. We've got a very strange language device here called synesthesia. It's a weird language device that you're unlikely to come across in anything else, but you know, it's here. So we've got this image of the mother under the tree, quite a carefree image as well, sitting under a tree, and she's got love bites on her neck. So that idea of the mother again being in love, kind of having fun, perhaps being a little bit of a tearaway as well, you know, going up and getting up to stuff that she shouldn't. And then we're back with the mother and the schoolgirl, or the little girl. I would say she's a young girl here. Incidentally, I would suggest that the speaker in the poem is probably a teenage girl looking back on the mother. And the reason that I say that is because there's that sense in the poem that the speaker really admires the mother's beauty. She admires the glamorous nature of the mother. There's a sense for me that this is a teenager that's doing the talking. I could be wrong there. There's no right or wrong answer to it, but that's how I read it anyway. But at the very end, the final stanza, I think we've got this image of a young girl with the mother. Cha-cha-cha. The cha-cha is a dance. So the mother here is teaching the little girl the steps on the way home from mass. So they're walking back from mass, they're walking back from church, and the mother is teaching the little girl the steps. And to me, this suggests a couple of things. It suggests the idea of the closeness between the mother and daughter. They're very close. The daughter is having fun with the mum. The mum's showing her things, showing her dance steps that she learnt when she was younger in the ballroom. But also the mother kind of missing that life, you know, the mother still remembers those times, and she still perhaps occasionally dances, do you know what I mean? And she still kind of remembers those dance moves, and she's living that life to an extent, but in a different way. She's living it through showing it to the child, through showing those dance moves to the child. So for me, that's quite a sad image, you know. It's a happy image in that they're having fun together, but it's tinged with sadness. And the mother is stamping stars from the wrong pavement. To me, that links to two things. First of all, they're on a pavement at the beginning of the poem, but The mother has now turned a corner and she's on a different pavement. So there's a bit of metaphor going on here. There's a bit of symbolism. But also, I think it links into the idea of if you've been to LA or if you've seen photos of what they call the Hollywood Walk of Fame, there's these stars there, and where actors and actresses and kind of beautiful rich celebrities, they have a star in the pavement with their name on it. And it's that idea that the mother never quite fully realised everything that she could have. She never quite reached her potential, and while she could have had perhaps a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you know, she was a Marilyn type figure, Marilyn's a Hollywood star, while she could have perhaps realised that potential and been one of those people, actually it never happened for her, and now she's stamping stars from the wrong pavement. It's not that pavement, it's not that Hollywood Walk of Stars, it's just some pavement in Glasgow somewhere or some part of Scotland, you know. So there's a bit of that tragic idea there as well. There's that reference to the movie motif, the film motif that runs through the poem, links back to the idea of Marilyn, links back to the idea of the pavement and being on a different pavement, the wrong pavement, links back to the idea of the corner and the symbolism of turning the corner and ending up on the wrong pavement. So there's that sense of sadness, that sense from the speaker's perspective that the mother didn't achieve everything she should have. She looks at the mother in the photos and she thinks she was so beautiful. She could have been a model, she could have been an actress, and she's just not become that. She's just my mother. Okay, I know that sounds a bit harsh, but that's how I read it. Even then, and this is why I read it like this, even then, this is the girl, the perhaps teenage girl, saying that even when she was little, she wanted the bold girl, she wanted the mother that she'd seen in the photographs in the first stanza. Even then, I wanted the bold girl winking in Portobello, somewhere in Scotland, before I was born. You know, she looked at the mother and she saw the old photograph. She thought, Mum, you were so beautiful. You know, and she, part of her deep down, wanted that mother. She wanted that mother, and the mother has changed so much. That glamorous love lasts where you sparkle and waltz and laugh before you were mine. And again, the final line, links to the title, before you were mine, and just emphasises that ownership, emphasises that idea that the speaker in the poem owns the mother. So to come down to the table, the mother still longs for her youth, as evidenced by the fact that she stamps stars from the pavement and dances with the daughter, and the mother didn't realise her full potential in life, and that links to that quote, the wrong pavement. And I think you've got the idea of actually the daughter longs for the mother that she sees in the photos. So you can build on this table. I'm not giving you everything by any means here. I'm just kind of giving you some basics to get started. But I'm going to take you down here for a minute, if you don't mind, and I'm going to give you a little question. You don't have to do this, but there's a question here. It's only about one poem, and I know it's a comparative poem in the exam, but it doesn't hurt to write about them individually as well. Just get to know them, get to understand the themes. And that question is, explore the relationship between the speaker and the mother in Before You Were Mine. So if you had a question like that, a task like that, these are some of the things that you could think about. Explore the relationship between the speaker and the mother in Before You Were Mine. You could talk about the way that the speaker owns the mother, and the way that the speaker's birth really changed the mother's life, and that she no longer had that freedom. You could look at how the speaker kind of longs for the mother, that she there's almost that sadness that she wants the mother in the photographs. You know, she loves her mother, obviously, but she really admired the mother that she sees in the photographs, the beautiful mother, the carefree mother, the mother that had loads of friends and loads of admirers. You could talk about the way that the mother didn't realise her full potential in life, and perhaps how the speaker and the speaker's arrival has impacted on that. You could talk about the closeness, actually, when they're stamping stars from the pavement, when the mother's teaching her to dance. The speaker and the mother are presented as being very close. And you could also perhaps talk about, in fact, linking into that would be the you in the title as well. They're very close, as evidenced by the direct address in the poem, by the fact that they dance together, by the fact that the speaker says, "I knew you would dance like that." The speaker knows the mother very well. So you've got lots and lots of stuff there that you could really kind of get on with. You know, and I would encourage you to make a table like this and put some quotes in, and even try just writing about this poem, even if it's just this poem on its own. You know, you can compare it with other poems by all means if you're feeling confident. But if you're not feeling confident, maybe just try writing about one poem, and then that will give you a real detailed understanding of the poem. I hope that's been useful. I've given you a lot of stuff there, and I would suggest that you perhaps go through this video again, pause the video where you don't understand something, rewind it, make your table, get your head around it. But there's loads and loads and loads there to really kind of help you get started. If you've enjoyed this video, then please share it, like it, subscribe to the channel. And you can also check out my website, which I'm going to flash up on the screen. And, you know, yeah, check out my other videos. There's tons and tons of poetry resources that are up and will be going up, and other English resources as well. So keep checking back, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, good luck with it.